on board. President Sisi extends his condolences to his Russian counterpart Putin and families of the deceased. President Sisi wraps up three-leg nations tour, which includes stops in the United Arab Emirates, India and Bahrain. Welcome back. A Russian airliner carrying 224 passengers and crew members crashed in Sinai on Saturday, killing all on board. The ill-fated Airbus A321, operated by Russian airline Kogalmavia under the brand name Metrojet, was flying from the Sinai Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh to St. Petersburg in Russia when it went down in a desolate mountainous area of central Sinai soon after daybreak. We have the details.
A Russian passenger plane carrying 224 people crashed in the Hassana area in Sinai in the early hours of Saturday, killing all on board. Out of the total 217 passengers, 138 were women, 62 men and 17 were children. The Russian Emergency Ministry published a list of names of the passengers, ranging in age from a 10-month-old girl to a 77-year-old woman. At St. Petersburg's Polkovo airport, anxious family members awaited news of their loved ones. The plane with 214 Russian and 3 Ukrainian passengers and 7 crew had taken off from the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh in the south of Sinai, bound for St. Petersburg. It lost contact with an air traffic control 23 minutes later. The plane was at an altitude of 31,000 feet when it vanished from radar screens. Ambulances were sent to the crash site to transfer the victims to nearby hospitals in El Arish, while helicopters were deployed to transfer the victims to hospitals in Cairo. An official with the Russian Aviation Agency said the plane had departed Sharm el-Sheikh but did not make contact as expected with air traffic controllers in Cyprus and disappeared off radar screens. Egyptian officials said the pilot of the Russian airliner had reported technical difficulties and wanted to make an emergency landing before losing contact with air traffic controllers. An initial examination of the crash site showed that the plane had crashed due to a technical failure. The Russian embassy announced in a statement that all passengers on the flight had died when the plane crashed, extending condolences to the family and friends. Investigators will look into, among other things, the weather at the time the pilots experienced, maintenance record, signs of a stall, and any evidence of an explosion. In a related development, the State Council spokesman Hossam Qawish announced the formation of a work group including the Ministers of Aviation, Tourism, Interior, Social Solidarity, Health and Local Development, as well as representatives from the Ministries of Defense and Foreign Affairs. Police in Sinai announced a state of high alert, with forces being deployed at the entrances and exits of the governorates following the plane's crash. Head of the Suez Security Directorate, General Gamal Abdelbari, inspected the Ahmad Hamdi tunnel and the forces deployed there. Russian state transport regulator said it had found violations when it last conducted a routine flight safety inspection of the Kogalmavia. But after the inspection, which took place in March 2014, the airline remedied the breaches with the deadline it had been set. Airbus said it was ready to provide full support in the investigation over the A321-200 ill-fated aircraft. Airbus said in a statement the aircraft was 18 years old and had been operated by Metrojet since 2012. The aircraft had accumulated around 56,000 flight hours in nearly 21,000 flights. It was powered by IAE V2500 engines.
During a telephone conversation, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi extended his condolences to the Russian President Vladimir Putin and families of the deceased. Sisi promised to create conditions for the widest possible participation of Russian specialists in the investigation into the cause of the crash. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Sharif said it was impossible to determine the cause of the crash until the black box was examined, but that no irregular activities were believed to be behind it. Ismail said at a news conference that the chances of finding survivors were now near impossible and that a Russian team would arrive in Egypt late on Saturday. Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered on Emergency Ministry to dispatch rescue teams to Egypt to work at the plane crash site as he declared November the 1st a national day of mourning. In a statement, the Kremlin said that Putin also ordered the government to launch a special commission. An emergency ministry meeting announced that teams of rescue workers along with the Russian emergency minister will fly out to Egypt late today. Russia's transport, the head of Russia's air transport agency, are also leaving for the site. Russia's investigative committee said it had launched a criminal probe into any possible violation of air safety rules. Prosecutor General Councillor Nabil Sauder ordered a rapid and immediate probe into the plane. Councillor Nabil assigned a prosecution team to head to the crash site, investigate the plane's wreckage and delegate the concerned technical teams to determine the cause of the accident. Meanwhile, North Sinai's first attorney ordered that the wreckage and the black box of the plane be confiscated to determine the cause of the accident. He said the investigation team had been assigned to probe the communications between the plane and the cars, as well as the conversation between the pilot and his aides. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi wrapped up on Saturday a two-day visit to Bahrain, where he attended the Panorama dialogue and held talks with senior officials. We have the details.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi returned back to Egypt on Saturday, wrapping up a three-nation trip that included stops in the United Arab Emirates, India and Bahrain. In Manama, the head of state attended the Manama dialogue and held talks with senior officials, including Bahraini King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa. His talks with King Hamad focused on means of strengthening brotherly ties and means of boosting them in various domains. During their encounter, Sisi and Sheikh Hamad reiterated the significance of continuing consultations and coordination to meet aspirations of the country's peoples. Their talks also focused on the latest regional and international developments and how to coordinate Cairo and Manama's positions on issues of mutual concern. Meanwhile, President Sisi met with Bahraini Prince and Deputy Prime Minister Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, during which they reviewed developments in the Middle East region. The senior Bahraini official hailed Egypt's effective and continuous participation in international forums and Cairo's involvement issues. He applauded Egypt's backing to the Gulf Cooperation Council in supporting security and stability in the Middle East. Ahead of his departure, Sisi met with the German defense minister who was attending the Manama dialogue. During the talks, the German top defense official applauded El-Sisi to Berlin in June, saying that it had yielded positive results and boosted bilateral defense relations. She reiterated Germany's interest in enhancing cooperation with Egypt in the military side as well as the political and economic fields. Speaking at the annual Manama dialogue, He stressed that military intervention is not the only way to solving the current crises in different parts of the region. He highlighted Egypt's responsibilities in endorsing a political solution in Syria, Palestine, Libya and Yemen. The head of state spoke about Egypt's leading role in each of these countries and focused on the extreme danger posed by the terrorists who have been working on dominating these countries' powers and laws. Sisi went on to say that the international community recognized that the groups who were masquerading as religious parties have lost their credibility. He stressed that the economic and social norms have a great influence on any society.
The port side adjourned to Sunday the trial of 51 defendants, including ousted President Mohamed Morsi, on charges of storming into the portside prison and the ensuing violence that occurred in January of 2013. The court also decided to set the 15th of November session to Morsi's testimony on the incidents. The violence erupted after a verdict that sentenced to death several defendants in the portside massacre, accused of killing dozens of Al Ahly fans in the football match riots. In another case, the Cairo Criminal Court resumed the retrial of 81 defendants in what is known by the media as the State Council incidents. The court listened to the defense lawyers and viewed evidence in the case. The head of the Egyptian Radio and Television Union, Sam Al-Amir, said on Saturday that flagrant comments by the NBC channel on Egypt's state television required to submit a formal complaint to the media-free zone and enclose the episode's tape since its presenter went far from professional criticism Amir stressed that he will call upon the media-free zone to take effective action against the private-owned Saudi satellite channel. He said the national TV awaits a formal apology from the channel's administration denouncing what came in the episode. He said that no one can deny or forget the role of the Egyptian radio and television in being part of the Arab culture. The Egyptian television is the oldest Arab television channel, which was founded in 1960, as well as the Egyptian radio, which was launched in 1934. Moving on to regional news, a coalition of American-backed Kurdish militia and rebel groups launched on Saturday its first operation against territory controlled by the Daesh terrorist group in northeast Syria. In a statement on its Facebook page, the coalition said it had targeted Daesh tactical units and fighting posts outside Hol on Friday. Clashes raged between the Syrian Democratic Forces and the Daesh terrorist group. The SDF were formed in mid-October as an alliance between the powerful Kurdish People's Protection Units and other Syrian rebel groups.